When I was a teenager, like 18, that's when I was sort of introduced to Dawkins and a lot of sort of evolutionary and atheistic thinking. As a young Christian, I didn't have any apologetics on my side. I kind of felt like going out into the world, I was bombarded with a worldview that I didn't have a lot of ammo against.
Welcome to the Creation Today show, where we bring together interviews with experts and solid Bible teaching. Your host, Eric Hovind, affirms the ultimate authority of God's Word, the truth of creation, and why it matters to you.
Well, welcome to the Creation Today show, where we talk about science and faith without pretending like they are oil and water. We've got a former atheist on the show today, and I got to tell you, I love former atheists. And oh boy, this guy's got a past. He used to work for a man that wrote a book claiming that God was a complete delusion, which, let's be honest, that sounds a lot like someone saying love is a delusion because they've never had it. And come to think of it, this guy did work for a British guy who was always angry and thought that he was very intellectual by dismissing religious people as idiots. If you're not sure who I'm referring to, our guest today worked for none other than Richard Dawkins. Like the Richard Dawkins, the high priest of atheism, the evangelist of godlessness, the Pope with no hope, I guess, the Dalai Lama of Darwinism, because he talks about Darwinism all the time. But here's the kicker. Our guest walked away from this guy. He left the Dawkins camp and he became a Christian. I mean, that's like Neil deGrasse Tyson becoming a monk. Wow, so what happened? What did he see that made him say, you know what? Maybe there is something to this whole God thing. Well, we're going to get into all of that today, the groupthink, the hypocrisy, the skeptics, behind the scenes, what really was going on. And trust me, if you've ever wondered how someone could go from there is no God to Jesus is Lord, this is going to be a great conversation for you. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please help me welcome Mr. Josh Timonen. Josh, thanks so much for joining me today on the Creation Today show, bud.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good to be here.
I got to tell you, man, I was shocked about, I guess it was a little over a year ago that I got a text from Ray Comfort. He said, you're not going to believe the email I just got. And he said you had emailed him as Richard Dawkins' ex-right-hand man. I guess I don't know if that's a nickname now or not, and that you are now a believer. I got to get like behind the scenes on this. This is crazy, man. You didn't expect to be where you're at today, did you?
No, absolutely not. It's been a wild journey. So, I'm glad I am where I am now. I mean, with a few battle scars along the way.
Yeah.
So.
To my guests watching, Josh just did something incredible for us. I was in Texas and we went to a creation lab in Texas, and I got to slice open dinosaur bones, sand them down, look at them under the microscope, and see the biomaterial, the collagen and the osteocytes and things like that are still inside of these dinosaur bones, disproving the old age of these dinosaurs just emphatically. And Josh is a video producer. That's what he did for Dawkins. And he actually produced that entire show for us. And we were so thrilled to see that go out. Josh, thank you for your work in that field. And by the way, let me just go ahead and let you give a little promo here. That's kind of what you do now, isn't it?
Yeah. So these days I'm doing video production. I do a lot of work with a group called Church Coach Ministries, and we do video for churches doing fundraisers a lot of the time. So I'm traveling around the country, shooting little mini documentaries for capital campaigns. A lot of the time, people building new churches or adding a wing or doing something, a school, Christian music school. We did one in Memphis this year. So all sorts of fun stuff.
Dude, that's awesome. And the reason I'm just wearing a t-shirt today is I'm representing Josh's merch here. Josh gave me his t-shirt, Bibles and Barbells, and I got the hat. And by the way, Josh, this is now my favorite hat. I wear this all the time. I wouldn't be wearing it on the show if the girls in the office would have said okay, but they said nope, the shadows don't work.
Yeah, it's gonna mess up your light.
Yeah, I love this, man. Tell me real quick about Bibles and Barbells.
Yeah, so a big part of my story, just to quickly dive in, is that I think weightlifting is super important for men. on their own journey, wherever they're going. But especially on a spiritual journey, I think having self-confidence and all the things you have to do in weightlifting to improve yourself are things that help you stand up against the world and the pressures that are going to come at you from all angles, right? In the secular world. So we started a men's group that meets weekly, and we do an hour of weightlifting and then an hour of Bible study right afterwards. And
Wow.
it's been great. We've actually got a group started up in British Columbia, and we've got a couple other people that are playing with starting up groups in other areas. So I like to think that I'm trying to plant these, it's like church planning, but Bibles and barbells planning, getting little groups going here and there. So that's the
That is
hope.
awesome.
And so
Dude,
we
I
have
love it, man.
BiblesandBarbells.com is up, and check it out.
I'm wearing the shirt. I need to do a little bit more of the working out. Okay. So I guess I need to, I love the
That's right,
Bible
me too.
study. And I love working out. I always don't think I have time, but the truth is I don't make time, or I was taught it's not a priority. You don't ever say I don't have time. You just say it's not a priority. And you're right. I should probably turn that into a priority. Well, let's jump into your story. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Sure. I was just going to say too, yeah, the thing is like, I'm not unique in this kind of emergence of weightlifting and Bible study and sort of a Christianity emerging, I think, in a more masculine space, right, on the internet. There's a ton of different channels and things that I've sort of come across now, and that we partner with, and we, share videos, and it's amazing to see like how this all sort of has organically emerged, this wave of weightlifting and Bible study. So
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, I just read, because I'm going through the Christmas story, obviously, right now in the Bible, and I was just reading in Luke. Where's my phone? I was looking at it on my phone, and I just got the end of is it chapter 2, where it says it's right after Simeon, and anyway, it says Jesus increased in wisdom, in stature, favor with God, and favor with man, and those are the 4 areas of life that we need to be disciplined and balanced in, physical, mental, spiritual, and social. And if you just draw a circle and then draw a plus sign in it and talk about the 4 quadrants, you got 4 quadrants of life: spiritual, physical, mental, and social. And you need to grow equally. Some people do only physical, but they don't grow in the other areas. And it's important to grow in all 4 areas. Ooh, maybe
Absolutely.
I should do Bibles, barbells, and then come up with 2 more for over here.
For the other quadrants. You got 2 quadrants.
Yeah, exactly, man. I got the quads. I love it. Well, let's jump into your story. I think it's fascinating. I listened to your interview with Ray Comfort while you were sitting there in his studio. He brought you in, and just what an incredible story. In a sense, I kind of want to repeat the story for people that have never heard of you or heard your story. Where do you think your story starts? Where would you say, okay, if I had to go back to the beginning, I'd start right here?
Yes, my great grandmother came over on the Mayflower, and no, we won't go back that far.
That's way back.
I guess we'll probably talk about becoming an atheist. I'll just share a little bit there that, for me, when I was a teenager, like 18, that's when I was sort of introduced to Dawkins and a lot of sort of evolutionary and atheistic thinking, I would say, that whole world. Before then, I was a young Christian, and I was just not a very strong Christian, I would say, at that time, and didn't really have a lot of weaponry against the world. As a young Christian, I didn't have any apologetics on my side. I kind of felt like going out into the world, I was bombarded with a worldview that I didn't have a lot of ammo against. That's kind of the way I look at it now. And I read The Selfish Gene, Blind Watchmaker, some of Richard's primary books back in that day. And I was persuaded of an atheistic worldview then, and spent, several years. I was a musician. I was living in LA, and I was doing sort of an odd computer job here and there, and getting by with playing music and doing that. And I would go to this forum that people would talk about some of Richard's stuff. And it was when he released a TV show called The Root of All Evil. I don't know if you remember this. It was like right before the God Delusion came out, his book. And I noticed he didn't have a website, like a true, Richard Dawkins location on the internet. And so I was chatting with some people, and I said, yeah, why doesn't he have a website? And somebody just passed me his email address. I said, like, well, here's your email. Don't post it or anything, but you can contact him if you want. And I was always gung ho. I love doing stuff like that, just reaching out to people, and I just sent him a quick email in the middle of the night. And of course, he's 8 hours ahead in the UK, so he wrote back right away and said, yeah, I'd love, to have. I said, hey, you don't have a website. Do you want me to make you one? And he said, yeah, that'd be great. So I was like, okay, let's do it. So I started making richarddawkins.net, which was, it's kind of, I accumulated all of his articles from around the web and all of his content into one place, and got that going right before The God Delusion came out in 2006. It was in the fall. And that's kind of Richard's resurgence in popularity. He had the big thing in like the late 70s with Selfish Gene. And then The God Delusion, though, kind of took him to new heights, and that was kind of right at the start of the new atheist emergence with Sam Harris, Richard Dawkins, Daniel Dennett, Christopher Hitchens, and others. So, I mean, in a way, I kind of just hopped on the wave of this resurgence of atheism. And, I'm just a dumb kid, let's say that up front, like through all this, I'm like 20 years old. So, this was me just jumping in with both feet and making something happen, and using some of the skills I had from building websites and doing video production and stuff. A lot of it from the music world. I kind of cut my teeth doing stuff for bands, and then just ran with it and ended up making videos, t-shirts, DVDs, stickers, and all sorts of different things for Richard for several years up through about 2010. So a lot happened in there, but that was kind of where it was somebody that I thought of as a hero. Richard, he was the reason I became an atheist, in a lot of ways. So yeah.
So would you say that it was almost like that was celebrity status, and you're like, I'm hanging out with, because I mean, in a sense, these are the celebrities of atheism.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was the excitement of it, at the time. And I think about the path of becoming an atheist proselytizer or evangelical atheist. It's like there's kind of a two-step thing, right? There's the becoming an atheist in the beginning, which is like your own personal, transition from being a Christian to an atheist for me. And for me, that was a lot of being persuaded by evolution, also growing up, becoming a teenager, sort of stepping out into the world, feeling like, well, maybe this is part of me becoming an adult, shedding, that youthful thinking of Christianity. And, I'm more mature now. You buy that evolution is a viable explanation, I guess, in that moment as an 18-year-old. You say, yeah, that I can see how that could make sense. And then you don't need a God to explain the world. And that was my personal step, right? And then there's also like a burden you feel like you're carrying, that you kind of take pride in, almost like, yes, it's a nihilistic kind of sad transition from a hope for eternity to nihilism, really. But hey, it's a weight
nothing matters now.
I'm a big thinker, and I can carry that burden with me. And I think Richard does a pretty good job of selling that as a chip on the shoulder, to he, in his Root of All Evil special, he says, we are going to die, and that makes us the lucky ones, and he talks about just celebrating this life. It's like, yeah, it's nihilistic and depressing beyond it, but and so it's kind of a twisted way that he romanticizes atheism, I would say. But the evangelical part, jumping in with both feet to say, hey, not only am I going to call myself an atheist, but I'm going to evangelize. I want to convert people away from Christianity to becoming atheists, and that was like the new atheist moment in the late 2000s. And I think that's a little different, right? That's kind of like a big step. You're getting in people's business now. There's a certain level of mockery and derision that goes on, that Richard's a big part of, right? And Sam Harris too. But I think a lot of that stemmed from, there was a big push after 9/11 to say that, religion is dangerous, period. And the idea that these people couldn't be convinced otherwise, right? Like they're locked in their beliefs, and we can't talk them out of it, and didn't matter what religion you were talking about. That was the danger. And so we had, if we don't fix this, then, the plane's never getting off the runway of us emerging into the atheistic utopia and the perfect future, right? And
Yes, whatever that might look like.
yeah, right. And we can talk about that later, but like that was the idea. And you lumped in Christianity with Islam and everything else, saying this is where we need to prevent this. We need to stop these people from being immovable in their beliefs. Just a quick aside to that, jumping forward, it's kind of a funny way. If you flip it over, you can say, well, what they're really saying, like in Christianity, the firm foundation of Jesus, being something that you can stand on firmly, that's what they hate in a way, is because it's unmovable, right? That you can't be persuaded out of it. That it's like, no, I'm standing on that and I'm not moving. But of course, what they want to say is, okay, yeah, you're saying you're not moving, but what if what's on that firm foundation is dangerous and we can't talk you out of it? They want people to be malleable and persuadable. They want everyone on sand, essentially, right? I think in the atheistic world, because it's easier to shift people towards whatever they want.
What a great analogy. Yeah.
There's a lot in there. Yeah.
Let me jump backwards real quick. When you left, a Christian foundation and said, I'm adopting atheism, and you read the books and you were persuaded that direction, was that because of the time of year we're in right now, was there any, like, man, my parents taught me Santa was real and Easter Bunny was real. And now as you get older, you learn, because that's a big atheist thing. As you get older, you learn that's not real. That's not real. And they throw Jesus in it. Jesus isn't real. And they just kind of go down through the list. Was that a reality of what happened to you?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I think that's very common, and I'm not immune from that either. Like at that time in my life, you feel like you're growing up, you're learning more, and you feel like, maybe the people of my church or my family are suppressing information from me, and I'm discovering it outside, and they didn't want me to know this, and you feel like you're, it's almost like you're uncovering a conspiracy against you, and you're emerging into something new, and that can be exciting. And the other part of it is, it's not just an even weighing of the scales when you're a teenager. I would say the desire to remove the restraints of a Christian worldview play heavily when you're 18.
That's
it's a finger on the scales, let's say, right? So, you're in that moment and you're saying, wow, I could picture that this is a world that makes sense without God. And I also sure like the idea of doing what I want to do. It's a little tip on the scale there, right?
A little, my desires are weighing, my hormones are giving me desires that are weighing heavily right now, for sure.
So I think that's a part of the picture that happens to everyone around that time. And I think it's, you can't ignore that. So, that was me for sure. There was, I was playing in bands and playing music and wanting to kind of like, you're trying to build your identity of yourself, in that time and, becoming an adult. So for me at that time, becoming an atheist was another piece of that. Like, okay, yeah, I'm shedding, just like the Easter Bunny, Santa Claus, God, putting that aside, that there was a viable picture of the world that somebody was telling me, this is the way the world could be, and you don't need God in it. And, there's varying levels of explanation there. Like, is that the full picture? Like I'm reading a popular science book by somebody who is an evolutionary biologist, and they're providing a lot of information that is persuasive. But of course, when you're 18, what's the threshold of persuasion? Like it was enough for me then, not so much now, but I think that's where a lot of people find themselves that were in that.
Let me ask you this on that note, because what I see is that there's two tools that they use to try to take people out of Christianity and into their nihilistic, atheistic worldview. And they try to use science and they try to use sarcasm or making fun of or ridicule. Which one do you think had a bigger play in your life? Or do you think it was kind of two sides of the same coin? they made fun of the Christians for all these different beliefs, and it looked like they had the science? Or what was that? How do you process that?
I think when I was even younger, I have memories of ridicule, being a young Christian, people mocking me or saying, you actually believe that, and I think that definitely played in over time. And I think Richard leans heavily on that too now, and obviously with his books and his TV shows, and he's very much a ridiculer. Um, I think that does play a part. I think that's just, we don't want to admit that we don't like the social derision, that we say, oh, I don't like being made fun of, I don't like feeling outside the herd, outside the group. And I think they use that to their advantage. Um, I, I mean, really, if you were to try to break it down percentage wise, I think it's more derision than facts and information for sure, in the persuasion of most people, because nobody wants to feel like they're outside. And I think the secular world is really good at building a big web that feels insurmountable of information. That's like, you look at it and you say, wow, this is the way everybody thinks. So, who am I to stand up against that? And I think that's a lot. That is a type of ridicule in a way, sort of an underhanded one of just feeling like this is the way we all think.
Okay, so we're up to the point where you are now working for Richard Dawkins. You spend several years working with him. Give me that like inside scoop real quick.
Yeah. So for the first part of that, he was just getting the God Delusion book off the ground. He was touring a lot. So I was in Los Angeles and he was in the UK. So what would happen is we kind of just work over email and, the internet and video chat and things like that. And then we would go and like do tours. And so I would film events and we'd, post stuff on the web and DVDs and whatnot. And then I was also kind of the daily like news poster on the website. So I would collect articles from people. And so there was a lot of, what's in the news, people, a lot of Christian writers writing against the God delusion. We would post stuff like that. And then, Richard would kind of jokingly say, oh, let's throw up this article, this red meat to the lions. Cause he knew it was just like, people just sort of savage against anybody who wrote anything against him. So there was kind of an internal joke about that, the people that were his followers were pretty, pretty savage against everyone. And Ray Comfort's thing was in there too, the Banana Man story.
Yes.
Without
I
getting
remember when all that was happening, and I'm like, wow. I remember asking Ray when he came up with the Fool video, kind of going through that. I was like, was this really embarrassing for you? And he's like, yes. I mean, who wants to be mocked all over the internet and, be made fun of worldwide? The Banana Man is what they called him. And that was, so you were right there. So you actually helped mock Ray Comfort worldwide, basically.
Yeah. So PZ Myers, who was a teacher in Minnesota, he had posted it first and he was kind of a friend with Richard. And then he'd sent it over to me and I posted it on Richard's site and, under the title Banana Man. And, it kind of like blew up from our side, I think, a lot more. And then we had this whole mockery of Ray. And that's why, a couple of years back when I ordered a couple study Bibles from him, and that I had to write him that email and say, hey, I thought you might get a laugh out of this, that, sorry I was involved with you getting mocked for so long. But
wow.
Yeah, so I did a lot of video with him. We went to the Galapagos and we filmed some videos there, stuff around the US. We would shoot some other people, some different like Brian Greene, PZ Myers, Hitchens, Dennett, and these people. We shot a thing called The Four Horsemen, which got a lot of traction in 2007. And I guess they've now made that into like a book of the transcript, and it's got a few million views, I guess. And that was just Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, Daniel Dennett, and Christopher Hitchens in Hitchens' apartment in DC. And I just set up a couple cameras and we filmed all that one day and kind of took off. And
I remember watching this. I remember watching the atheist movement grow, and I'm like, dude, Christians, we got to do something, man. I mean, they're very, very convincing in the way that they speak, and both their ridicule and their science is really helping destroy a lot of people's trust in Scripture. And so I remember watching it from my side going, this is really bad. This is not helping. And I thought, you know what? Let me go up against atheists. Let me challenge. I started going to atheist events and things like that because I thought that they're like giving the biggest push, the biggest objections to Christianity. And if Christianity can handle that, it can handle anything. And that's what really made me want to go to a lot of atheist events and go to the Reason rallies and kind of befriend atheists, if you will. Because I'm like, listen, I love you guys. I care about you guys. And sometimes you're casting your pearls before swine. Other times you're making an impact. And when I hear stories like yours, I'm like, okay, maybe some people along the way made an impact. And I'm curious about that too. While you're behind the scenes, you're recording this, you're hearing them speak. At that time, are you going, this is amazing? Or are you like, when do you start seeing some of the cracks in the flaws in the foundation of what they're saying? I'm real curious how that happened.
Yeah, I mean, for the time I was there, I was all in. I was pushing it hard, and I was very much an evangelical atheist myself. Like I was helping shape a lot of the content that we were putting out. And like the videos and coming up with ideas for the video a lot of it. Richard, obviously being an evolutionary biologist, that's his specialty. That, we would do a lot of science stuff, but he would focus on atheism a lot more. I think atheism gets the clicks, and so there was definitely a sense of like, wow, we're not really doing as much science as we are atheism, as the years went on. And, just one small memory, we started doing some videos called RDF TV, which Richard Dawkins Foundation TV. And at the time, it was me and my wife. We were basically running most everything on the website and behind the scenes. So we went and shot one with Michael Shermer, who runs Skeptic Magazine. And then we did one with Brian Greene. And when we did the Brian Greene one, a lot of the people in Richard's orbit are like, well, why are we wasting our time on this? Like, I was like, well, it's science. It's like string theory. It's like, don't we want to be pushing something like that and talking about that too? And they're like, no, they just wanted atheism. A lot of people in his orbit and that were kind of close to him. So it was revealing, that was the focus all the time, it got a little tiring towards the end. And, we parted ways in about 2010, and decided to go our separate ways. And, we kind of there was a big fallout and all sorts of nonsense at the time. But I left there still being an atheist, still being a convinced atheist. I just called myself a coasting atheist beyond that, where, I was kind of fed up and over the people, in the space, but I still held on to the atheistic idea.
Did you see a lot of character flaws in the people behind the space, or was it like, is that part of the, like what? Because I'm curious, is it, at the core, these aren't very good people, or is it, no, they're all really nice. We just fell out. I don't even know if you can comment on that.
No, I mean, there's a lot to say there, right? I mean, I think that what we really, let me think about this. So going back, there is a big push to say we can be good without God, in the atheistic world, right? It's going back to that idea of we're almost to that atheist utopia. All we got to do is, shut down some of these religions and everything's going to be great. And the hope, I think, in the atheist world is that that's where we were headed. We were all going to see this in our lifetimes. But no, the behavior of the people in the space didn't reflect that. Obviously Richard is very antagonistic publicly, and while we got along great most of the time, he and I, that antagonism was pretty clear that there was sort of a lack of humanity sometimes in other interactions. He and I mostly got along pretty well, and through to the end. The trouble with a lot of organizations in anywhere, but especially in the atheist world, is that someone like him attracts a lot of different kinds of people in his orbit, and so those were more the people that I ended up having issues with and problems. But yeah, you didn't see a lot of great humanity in the people, a lot of great heart. So, we would do a lot of atheist conventions where we go film and go talk to people. And there was a lot of those that I would say were revealing in the kinds of people that come to those. Like there was a little something missing. And now I can kind of give you a hint as to what I think is missing from there. But, you know, at the time, I was like, oh, something's missing there, you know.
Well, I do want you to do that. Give me just a second, though. Unfortunately, I got to let social media go. Guys, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, all the different places we stream, television, podcast audience. Thank you guys for tuning in to listen to the first half of his story. I'd love for you to catch the second half. If you come over to creationtoday.org, you can catch the second half of this. All you do is partner with us to reach the world with the gospel. It's so important. I still want to ask Josh so many questions about his story and his journey. Can Christianity do what the Dawkins Foundation did? What are we missing that they are doing that's advertising and so, you know, getting the word out there? Can we compete? Can we in the marketplace of ideas? So got a lot that I want to talk to Josh about, but unfortunately, that's all the time we have today. I'm looking forward to next week's show with you, though. Next Wednesday, we'll meet right here. I get it. It's going to be Christmas. Looking forward to that. I want to highlight what we've done in the last half here of 2024. It'll be a fun show, just going through some of the clips that got the biggest views and things like that on our social media sites. So come join me next Wednesday at 12 noon, and look forward to seeing you then. Until next week, please go share the gospel with someone who needs to hear it. Oh, and Josh's website, if you haven't, I forgot, Josh. Timonens.com. Is that it? Is that your website?
Yeah, JoshTimonen.com. Yeah.
JoshTimonen.com. Yeah. So make sure you go check out his website. Do you already have like where people can subscribe to you to get, or is it just follow you on social media from your website? Is that what's the
there's some
thing?
social media links on there. Instagram.
Perfect, guys. Perfect. Go there, and whatever you have, all those social media sites, go give Josh a follow and just consume what he's doing. I love people who've been there, done that, and now here they are serving God. And I love understanding, because they get both sides. I never went through a complete atheism phase. I went through a slight rebellion and a curiosity about other religions, but never pure atheism. So I love getting guys like Josh and getting their thoughts. So I look forward to seeing you guys next week. Go sign up for Josh, and before next week, go share the gospel with somebody who needs to hear it. We'll see you next week. Josh, this is fascinating.